What's going on, guys? I've been putting this video off for a little while. I just moved, so there's been a lot going on. I honestly didn't get as much footage as I would have liked for this video, and I noticed that in general I haven't really got as much footage as I would have liked for a lot of these tournaments. And just looking back on it, honestly, when I watch other people's YouTube videos, I have more of an appreciation for it now than I did before. It's actually a lot of work, and to get the actual footage is, you're out there on the water fishing, you're trying to focus on winning, you're not really focused on recording, all that stuff. So it's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, actually, and definitely growing a greater appreciation for it. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get into it. We had the James River on, I don't even know the date. What was the date? July 22nd. All right, we got the date. So what I kind of want to go through is, of course, I'm going to go through my tournament day, how that went. But then after that, I really want to talk about that kind of transition from June to July that I've seen. I can only personally speak on the southern part of the river, so down there by Chickahominy and the Chick. But there's definitely a clear transition from June to July. And so after we go over the tournament recap, I'll talk about that a little bit. So I didn't get to practice for this event, but I kind of knew going into it that I was going to be throwing a frog, a drop shot, maybe a spinnerbait, chatterbait. It's pretty straightforward. My boater said we were going south, we're going to be around some vegetation, and that's kind of the three baits that I'm looking at for most of the day. So we pull up to our first spot, and we don't catch anything through the first little section, and we work our way to a bank. We start going down the bank. My boater catches one, and then a couple minutes later, I put this fish in the boat. It's a little better. That's funny though. Yeah, you're good. It's a little guy. Yeah, you're good. Don't worry about him. I'm putting him in. He's swimming right at me. He'll keep though. You see, I just got him on a drop shot. During July, if you go down to Pokes, the Chick, any kind of little finesse bait like that, a drop shot, a shaky head, a slider head, anything like that that you can throw against those grass lines, you're gonna get bit, you're gonna get some bites. So that's definitely something you wanna have in your arsenal when you go out there. Like I said, I didn't get a lot of footage. The footage kind of sucks, like you saw in that first video. My camera's kind of tilted down. I don't know, just so much going on. I'm focused on catching fish, but I'm gonna try to do a little better job of that. So we continue to work our way back into this little creek, and it's a little creek, and it's got two distinct grass lines running on both shorelines, and then kind of just nothing in the middle. And that's something I'll talk about later, those grass lines, and that's kind of that transition you see from June to July, is how the fish relate to the grass and stuff like that, or at least that I saw. But anyways, we get in this little creek, it's high tide, and I'm kind of just targeting like up above that grass, because that grass has some more water on it with it being high tide. And I was just throwing that frog in there. I think I put 2 fish in the boat on a frog, 2 just small keepers in there. And we spent maybe an hour or 2 in there. I've never really used a frog much. Like I said in my last James River video, that was my first frog fish weighed in. And since that video, I have been taking that frog to ponds, Lake Anna, and really just trying to get a good feel for it. And I've really realized how you can totally utilize it as a co-angler, because you can just get it places where your boater can't put regular baits. If he's not throwing a frog, he can't get it in there unless he's got some crazy punching deal going on. It's a good tool. It's a very good tool. So that creek kind of dries up. We don't get any more bites. I've got my 3 keepers. He's got his 1, and he decides we're gonna make a move. Not super far move, but we ended up in an area that fished much differently. There wasn't that grass. The water was much more stained, and it was more of a hardcover kind of bank. You got the trees with the knees and stuff like that. And I really thought this was a good opportunity for me to catch a big one. Either throwing a spinnerbait or a crankbait. I really have never been able to get on that bite at the James. I've tried I really have tried to crank those knees, but I just don't have a good feel for it yet, I guess. So we start working down this bank. My boater doesn't catch anything. I put one little white perch in the boat cranking, and then I decided, I'm just gonna throw that spinnerbait around. I've caught fish on a spinnerbait. I haven't actually caught any fish cranking like a little square bill. I've never caught fish doing it. So I was like, all right, I gave it an opportunity. We'll go to a spinnerbait. I know that at least works, and I get this bite right here, which is a pretty cool bite.
Right at the boat. Oh, did you see that? I was reeling it out. Dang. Oh yeah. Thank you, buddy. That was lucky.
So that fish comes up and actually slurps it off the surface. I think it got a little hung in some grass or just something on the bottom, and I kind of popped it up as it was getting towards the boat, and you saw it came to the surface. And that fish just took it off the surface. So that was kind of like a little lucky break, even though it wasn't a super big one. It was another, I probably weighed that fish in. It was probably 1.5 pounds maybe. So we keep working down that bank, and it starts to get back into that area where you're getting that firm grass line, and it's matted off. And I actually feel pretty comfortable at this point fishing that stuff, just from the time I've been out there last year and this year. So I was like, all right, I think I can put my 5th keeper in the boat right here. So we're going down this mat, and I haven't gotten a bite yet. And I'm like, that's a little weird. You can actually hear me in this next video getting like a little bit frustrated, and then big bite on the frog. Not really a big bite, but it was probably my biggest fish of the day. So it helped, but I'll go ahead and run that clip.
One more. Good one. No, he's got it choked. Yes, sir. Yeah, he was off the grass. Thank you. God, you can't beat that. It's a good one too. That's a pretty good one.
So I've got my 5th fish, and I'm feeling pretty good. It's still pretty early in the day, and I know you just need that one bite really especially the James. Like you get that 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 pound bite that's going to push you over the edge. Especially at that point, I knew I just needed that one bite to push me into the top 10. And so we continue to fish, kind of the same stuff, just grass lines, stuff like that. And I threw a drop shot. I plucked a couple shorts on the drop shot as we continued down that bank. And I had a blow up on the frog, didn't get him in the boat. And I think we made a run back to where we started, which was that little creek. So my GoPro is dead at this point, but anyways, right off the bat, running down that original bank that we caught our first 2 keepers on, I put one in the boat on a frog. It calls out my smallest fish, so I maybe called a 12-incher out for a 13-incher. Nothing crazy. We keep moving down the bank. It's low tide, so this creek looks different at this point. The water's not up in that grass anymore. And this is something that I will talk about after I finish this little recap about how these fish position in the grass once it gets that grown in. But anyways, there's a big laydown in the middle of the creek. It's low tide. My boater catches his 2nd fish on it. I eventually get a couple casts at it. I catch a pretty good one, like another 1.5 pound fish, maybe 13.5 inches, 14 inches, calls out a 12.5 incher. And so that's my 2nd call. I just still can't get that big bite, but I'm working my way up. I'm just that one bite away. And we continue into that tiny little creek, and we go even further back, and we get to the point where it's like, it's low tide too, so I mean, there just wasn't any water back there. I felt pretty hopeless. I was like, I don't know if I can get bit back here. And then on the way back out, right, like this is towards the back of the creek, I sling that frog up into a mat that's coming out of some little tiny creek. I mean, it couldn't have been more than 6 inches of water. That's like being generous. Right as it hits the water, doof, and set the hook on him, drag him through all this crap, get him up in the boat, and he makes another call. So I've called 3 times now, all just by maybe 6 to 8 ounces. It was just another 14 incher. And that's the last bite I got all day. I couldn't get that one big bite to push me over the edge. It was disappointing, but at the end of the day, I was actually really happy with my performance. You know, on these river systems, you can kind of use your boater as a gauge to how well you fished. And this isn't a knock on my boater at all. He's a great fisherman. He was a great guy. I really enjoyed the day with him. I just caught more fish that day. I think I just fished well. He only caught 2 keepers. I called 3 times. So I feel like I did everything I could have done. I put myself in a position to be successful. I just didn't get that big bite, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. I came in with 8 pounds and an ounce, and I think that put me in 40th, which is not a bad outing at all. Just that one bite, that's all it would have taken. So it was a good tournament, but anyways, let's get into, you know, kind of my thoughts on that transition from June to July and some things to kind of look for if you are fishing down there in the Chick or Japokes, or there's some other creeks down there, I'm sure, that have those grass lines like that. So in June, that grass is not really topped off yet. When you get to July, it's topped out, it's matted, and it's a wall. Like, it's a wall going down the bank. Whereas in June, it's still kind of growing. There's holes in it. The creeks that are running into the bigger creeks have like a channel. And so it really allows you to fish in that grass, essentially. Whether you want to be throwing topwater over it, you can throw a chatterbait in it, you can flip into the holes. At low tide, you can really target those channels because they're just not full of grass yet in June. So I felt like June was much easier to get those bigger bites, just because there wasn't as much areas for them to hide, and there's also distinct little places for them to kind of get into that you could just visually see. July gets tough because you get those walls. Like, they are just firm walls of grass. And, you know, I don't have much experience punching. I don't know if that's maybe a way to get into some of these bigger fish, but it's very common. I've done it 2 years in a row now. I've heard of other people doing it. I've watched people do it where they just run down that wall and they get their bites. Like, there are fish just swimming up and down that wall. You can fish it and you're gonna get your bites. And you're gonna catch your 8 to 12 pounds. It's gonna be a fun day. But I just haven't seen those big fish come on the grass lines. From last year to this year, I've caught a ton of fish on the edge of that grass. I've seen my boater catch fish on the edge of that grass, and I just haven't seen that big bite come yet. So where are those big fish? Where are these people catching these big fish? Are they just getting into an area where their grass line has bigger fish? I find that hard to believe because I've fished multiple grass lines and haven't seen that yet. So, you know, that brings up that question, you know, where are they at in July when that grass gets like that? So I have a couple theories on where you could maybe try to take that next step to get that bigger bite. And the first one's pretty obvious. I feel like if they're not on the edge of the grass, maybe those bigger fish are actually in the mat itself. And, you know, the only way I could think of catching those fish would be just to punch. And I don't have a lot of experience punching, and I wouldn't really know exactly what to look for specifically because there's so much of that mat. Like, I don't know how you would break that down essentially, but I'm sure there are some people that do know how to do that, and I would imagine that's one way to get a bigger bite. Secondly, the second and third one kind of go together, but I think you got to find some hard cover. I think you can either find docks, a little bit stained water with those trees in the water. You're not going to get as many bites doing that, I don't think, but if you just need a big bite, I just think that hard cover this goes for anywhere. Lakes, rivers, hard cover seems to hold big fish. Maybe not as many bites as you would get out in the grass or something like that, or offshore, but you will get big bites on hard cover. So I think that's something maybe to throw into your game plan. And then as far as tides go, I think this kind of winds in with the hard cover, but I noticed that I couldn't get bit on those grass edges in the thin creeks when it was low tide. And I think there just wasn't enough water on them. It was just choked out at that point. So those fish had nowhere to go but into the middle of the creek. So at the end of the day, when we pulled up on that laydown in the middle of the creek, which we didn't catch any on at high tide, there were fish stacked on it. So I said we both caught a keeper on it, but we also caught a couple shorts on it. So that kind of told me, you know, when that water falls out, if you can get into an area where those fish can't really live on the edges anymore, if you can find some kind of structure out in the middle of the creek, they're all gonna get sucked into it. And so that's something that I know when I'm a boater, I will definitely spend a lot of time in my practice, you know, looking around for those kind of things, because I think that's a great way to not only maybe try to catch a bigger one, but just like put keepers in the boat really fast, like at low tide. So that's my thoughts on it. You know, I really do try to reflect and think about the future. You know, when I'm in the moment as a co, I'm fishing, you know, wherever I go, I'm fishing. I'm gonna try to put the fish in the boat wherever I'm at, but I'm also trying to think about, you know, when I do get that opportunity to go out there and make the decisions myself, where would those opportunities be for me to really separate myself from the rest of the field? And yeah, so those are some of my thoughts on what that would be. You know, if any of you guys have any thoughts on it, or, you know, you've been whacking big ones out there, I'm sure you wouldn't want to share that information. But if you have any ideas on how to catch some bigger ones out there, or just in general, you have questions about the river, you know, reach out to me. Follow me on Instagram. I'll leave it in the description. But yeah, you can always message me. I love talking fishing, whether it's even about the James or Lake Anna, Smith Mountain, or anything. Just reach out, and I'll definitely get back and we'll have a conversation about it. But anyways, thank you for watching. I am getting ready for the 2 super tournaments next month, and the first one's really important actually. I'm in 41st in the Piedmont because my boater's prop fell off and I didn't make it back to weigh in at Kerr. So at Kerr in September, I just need to put a fish in the boat, just one. I might throw a shaky head the whole day, and just try to weigh a fish, make sure I make that regional at the Potomac. But then hopefully I'll be fishing the regional at the Potomac and then Norman in October. So I'm gonna try to do a better job of getting some better footage. And I might try to get out there and try to get some footage of Anna too. You know, my dad and I get out on Lake Anna all the time in the fall, and Lake Anna can be really good in the fall. So if I can get some good tournaments of us out there, I'll try to do that and maybe post a recap of one of those. All right, I'm really dragging this along, so I'll end it here. But thanks again for watching the videos. Thanks for following along. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys out there. Say hi if you see me, and good luck with all your fishing. Peace out.